A single mistake costs you your leg. One wrong step and jet exhaust sends you flying off the deck into the ocean. The roar of engines is so loud, screaming for help is useless. This is the reality for thousands of brave Americans working on aircraft carrier flight decks right now. Since 1980, over 42 crew members have been killed or permanently disabled doing this job. Lloyd's of London officially ranks it as one of the most dangerous jobs on Earth. What you're about to see reveals why these heroes deserve far more recognition than they get. The flight deck of a U.S. Navy aircraft carrier isn't just dangerous. It's a battlefield where one distraction can be fatal. These men and women operate in what military experts call controlled chaos. Picture a space barely larger than 3 football fields, packed with fighter jets carrying live missiles and bombs, helicopter rotors spinning at lethal speeds, and aircraft launching every 45 seconds. The temperature from jet exhaust reaches over 400 degrees. Wind speeds shift constantly. The deck moves with ocean swells. And through all of this, sailors in color-coded uniforms coordinate every movement with nothing but hand signals, because the noise makes verbal communication impossible. The U.S. Navy operates 11 nuclear-powered aircraft carriers. Each one requires hundreds of flight deck personnel working around the clock. These sailors don't get the glory of Navy SEALs or fighter pilots. They don't get Hollywood movies made about them. But without them, not a single aircraft leaves or lands safely. Their job is so critical and so dangerous that they receive special hazardous duty pay. Yet most Americans have no idea what these sailors face every single day at sea. If you have respect for these unsung heroes, type salute in the comments below. The color-coded crew. Walk onto an active carrier flight deck, and the first thing you notice isn't the jets. It's the rainbow of colored shirts moving in perfect coordination. Every color represents a specific job, and every job carries life or death responsibility. Yellow shirts are the aircraft directors. They're called bears by their fellow sailors. These are the men and women you see guiding multi-million-dollar jets with lit wands, positioning them within inches of each other while the ship rolls beneath their feet. One wrong signal and a collision happens. Aircraft directors need impeccable situational awareness. They're tracking multiple aircraft movements simultaneously, watching for jet blast, monitoring weather conditions, and ensuring no one walks into a danger zone. It takes months of training to earn that yellow shirt, and the responsibility never gets easier. Green shirts handle maintenance and pre-flight inspections. They're crawling under jets, checking hydraulics, examining weapon systems, and making sure every aircraft is flight ready. If they miss something, lives are lost. Red shirts are the weapons handlers. They're loading live missiles and bombs onto fighter jets. One mistake with a 500-pound bomb doesn't give you a second chance. These sailors work with explosives in an environment where jet engines create sparks and extreme heat surrounds them constantly. Blue shirts operate the heavy machinery. Forklifts and tractors moving across a flight deck that's pitching with ocean swells. They're transporting equipment weighing thousands of pounds while aircraft taxi around them. Purple shirts, nicknamed grapes, handle all aircraft refueling. They're pumping jet fuel in an environment with open flames from exhausts and potential ignition sources everywhere. Fuel spills on a carrier flight deck can turn catastrophic in seconds. Brown shirts conduct the final checks before and after every flight. White shirts are safety observers and quality control. Every single person has a role. Every role is essential. And every role is dangerous. But here's what most people don't understand. These aren't just individual jobs. They're parts of an intricate system where everyone depends on everyone else. One person's mistake can kill a dozen others instantly. The real dangers. The statistics are sobering. Between 1977 and 1991, Navy records show 918 flight deck personnel were injured. 43 of them died. 5 suffered permanent total disabilities. 42 had permanent partial disabilities. Hundreds more suffered major injuries, including fractures, traumatic amputations, severe burns, and crushing injuries. In 2017, an experienced chief petty officer on the USS Ronald Reagan started his day like any other. By sunset, an FA-18 Super Hornet ran over his legs during deck operations. He lost one leg permanently and suffered permanent disability. This wasn't a rookie mistake. This was a 20-year veteran who knew every safety protocol by heart. In 2018, an airman apprentice on the USS George H.W. Bush was struck by the propellers of an E-2C Hawkeye. He died instantly. He was just starting his Navy career. These aren't isolated incidents. In 2022, 5 sailors were injured when an F-35C crashed on the USS Carl Vinson during operations in the South China Sea. The fighter slammed onto the deck, skidded, and fell into the ocean in flames. The pilot ejected safely, but those working the flight deck had nowhere to run. That same year, the USS Harry S. Truman lost 2 FA-18 Super Hornets within weeks. One made a bad landing. Another slipped off the deck and fell into the Mediterranean Sea. Each incident put deck crews in immediate danger. Before we go deeper into these hidden dangers, take just 1 second to hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Over 98% of you watch without subscribing, and it costs you nothing but helps us keep bringing you these important stories about our military heroes. Jet blast is one of the deadliest invisible threats. When an FA-18 powers up for launch, the exhaust creates wind speeds over 200 miles per hour and temperatures exceeding 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Sailors have been blown overboard by jet blast. In 1965, airman apprentice Barry Peterman was blown off the USS Enterprise by jet exhaust. His body was never recovered. Engine intakes create another horrifying danger. During Operation Desert Storm in 1991, Petty Officer J.D. Bridges was sucked into an A-6 intruder's engine intake. He survived only because his helmet and jacket went in first, prompting the pilot to cut the throttle immediately. The specific engine design of the intruder also saved his life. With any other aircraft, he would have died. A civilian mechanic at El Paso International Airport wasn't as lucky in 2006. He was sucked into a Boeing 737 engine and killed instantly. Arresting cables are another deadly hazard. These thick steel cables catch landing aircraft, decelerating them from 150 miles per hour to 0 in just seconds. When these cables snap under stress, they whip across the deck at lethal speeds, cutting through anything in their path. Sailors have been killed by cable failures. Controlled chaos. Understanding flight deck operations means understanding cyclic operations. Carriers launch and recover aircraft in organized groups called cycles. Each cycle lasts roughly 90 minutes. During a typical cycle, 12 to 20 aircraft launch, conduct their missions, and return for recovery. The flight deck is carefully spotted before operations begin. Every aircraft is positioned precisely so those launching first can taxi to the catapults without moving others. Once the first group launches, usually taking about 15 minutes, the deck crew immediately begins repositioning aircraft for the next launch while preparing to recover the first group when they return. It's a continuous loop. Event 1 launches. Event 2 prepares. Event 1 recovers and gets refueled, rearmed, and repositioned for Event 3. Event 2 launches. Event 2 recovers. This cycle continues 24 hours a day during active operations. Now imagine managing this while the ship is moving at 30 knots through rough seas. The deck pitches and rolls. Weather conditions change rapidly. Aircraft develop mechanical issues requiring emergency landings. And through it all, every crew member must maintain absolute focus because distractions kill. Communication happens entirely through hand signals. The noise on an active flight deck reaches 140 decibels. That's louder than a chainsaw at close range. Sustained exposure at that level causes permanent hearing damage within minutes. Sailors wear double hearing protection, but even with it, verbal communication is impossible. Directors use illuminated wands at night, creating a choreographed light show that guides 30-ton aircraft within inches of each other. The air boss commands everything from primary flight control, called Pry-Fly, high in the carrier's island superstructure. He and his assistant, the mini-boss, maintain visual control of all aircraft within 5 nautical miles of the carrier, from the surface up to 2,500 feet. Nothing moves on or near that flight deck without their approval. Below, the handler coordinates all deck movements like a chess master, thinking 3 moves ahead. He's positioning aircraft for the next launch while recovering current operations and planning for emergency scenarios simultaneously. Every person on that deck trusts their life to the person beside them. One wrong move from anyone creates a domino effect of disaster. The human cost. Beyond death and dismemberment, flight deck duty extracts another toll that's rarely discussed. The constant stress, the sleep deprivation, the physical demands, and the knowledge that any shift could be your last creates mental and emotional challenges these sailors carry silently. During deployments, carriers operate continuously. Flight operations run day and night. Sailors work 12 to 16-hour shifts, sometimes longer during intensive operations. They catch sleep in 4-hour blocks when they can. The physical exhaustion combines with constant mental alertness needed to stay alive. Petty Officer 3rd Class Melanie Cluck described the fear of earning her yellow shirt in 2017. The responsibility of directing aircraft, knowing lives depend on every signal she gives, created overwhelming pressure initially. But she learned what all flight deck veterans know. You either master the fear, or you don't survive. Modern carriers operate with reduced manning compared to previous generations. Budget constraints mean fewer sailors doing the same amount of work. When the USS Theodore Roosevelt deployed, they had to temporarily assign personnel from other non-deployed carriers just to meet operational minimums. Once the deployment neared completion, those temporary sailors returned to their home carriers to begin that ship's workup cycle. This creates near-continuous underway operations for individual sailors with minimal time home between deployments. The hazardous duty pay for flight deck work is $150 per month. That's $5 per day extra to work in one of Earth's most dangerous environments. A recent proposal to increase it gained attention when Navy leadership acknowledged the disparity between the pay and the actual risk level. $5 a day to risk your life. Young sailors increasingly question why they should accept flight deck assignments when safer positions on the same ship pay the same base rate. The answer comes down to duty, honor, and service. These sailors don't do it for money. They do it because America needs them. Because their brothers and sisters on that deck need them. Because 30 million Americans back home depend on them, even if most never know their names. Why it matters. America's carrier strike groups project power globally. They maintain freedom of the seas. They respond to crises anywhere in the world within days. When hurricanes devastate American territories, carriers provide immediate disaster relief with emergency supplies, medical facilities, and communication systems. When Americans need evacuation from hostile areas, carriers provide the platform for rescue operations. None of this happens without flight deck crews. Fighter pilots get documentaries made about their missions. Navy SEALs have their stories told in theaters. But the yellow shirt guiding that F-35 onto the catapult, the red shirt loading missiles in scorching heat, the purple shirt refueling aircraft while exhausted after a 14-hour shift, these heroes operate in the shadows. Their work requires the same level of skill, training, and courage as any combat role. They face death regularly. They operate under extreme conditions most people cannot imagine. They do it willingly, professionally, and with pride in serving something greater than themselves. The broader American public needs to understand what these sailors sacrifice. They miss birthdays, anniversaries, and holidays. They work in temperatures ranging from freezing North Atlantic storms to 120-degree Persian Gulf heat. They breathe jet fuel fumes. They risk death from 100 different threats every single shift. And they do it because someone has to. Recent data shows injury rates have decreased significantly compared to the 1980s. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, carriers reported roughly 51 injuries per 100,000 aircraft recoveries annually. By the late 1980s and 1990s, improved training and safety protocols reduced that to approximately 30 injuries per 100,000 recoveries. Modern carriers continue improving safety through better equipment, enhanced training programs, and technological advances. But the fundamental danger remains. You cannot eliminate risk from flight deck operations. The physics of launching and recovering aircraft from a moving ship in all weather conditions creates inherent hazards. What the Navy can do, and continues doing, is minimize those risks through relentless training, strict safety protocols, and ensuring every sailor understands that bringing everyone home safely is the top priority. The pride and the price. Despite everything, flight deck sailors wouldn't trade their jobs. Veterans describe the experience as transformative. The responsibility, the teamwork, the knowledge that you're part of something essential to national security creates pride that lasts a lifetime. Sailors bond in ways civilians struggle to understand. When you trust someone with your life every single day, when you watch each other's backs constantly, when you know they'd risk themselves to save you without hesitation, those relationships transcend normal friendships. Flight deck crews are families forged in danger. The skills learned translate beyond military service. The situational awareness, the ability to work under extreme pressure, the leadership qualities developed, the attention to detail, and the mental toughness created on carrier flight decks prepare veterans for success in any field they choose afterward. But the price is real. Physical injuries heal, though many sailors carry permanent scars, lost limbs, or chronic pain from flight deck service. The psychological toll runs deeper. Witnessing accidents, losing brothers and sisters, carrying survivors' guilt, and processing the constant stress creates challenges veterans may battle for years. The Navy is addressing these issues. Mental health resources have expanded significantly. Programs supporting sailors transitioning back to civilian life have improved. The military community is working to ensure that those who sacrificed for their country receive the care and support they deserve. The men and women working U.S. Navy carrier flight decks represent the best of America. They volunteer for danger. They train relentlessly. They perform with precision under conditions most people would find unbearable. They do it without seeking recognition or praise. They simply do their duty. Next time you see an aircraft carrier in the news, remember the hundreds of sailors on that flight deck, making every mission possible. Remember the yellow shirts, the green shirts, the red shirts, the purple shirts, the blue shirts, the brown shirts, and the white shirts. Remember the risks they take, the sacrifices they make, and the pride they carry in serving their country. These sailors are the backbone of American naval aviation. They deserve recognition. They deserve respect. They deserve our gratitude. And they deserve for their story to be told so Americans understand what it truly costs to maintain the world's most powerful Navy. Take a moment now to hit that like button if you have newfound respect for these heroes. Subscribe to stay informed about the men and women who serve this great nation. Their stories matter. Their service matters. They matter. The deadliest job on a U.S. aircraft carrier isn't performed by those seeking glory. It's performed by patriots who understand that freedom isn't free, and someone has to stand on that flight deck, face the danger, and get the job done. They do it for you. They do it for America. And they do it with honor.